Welcome to the Open Treasury Podcast, your go-to source for the latest news and analysis in corporate cash and treasury management. This show is brought to you by CTMfile.com and the Treasury News Network, where Treasury professionals learn and share the information that matters most.
Hello and a warm welcome to the Open Treasury Podcast from CTMfile. I am Pushpendra Mehta, Executive Writer for CTMfile. My guests for today are Jack Large, Editor of CTMfile, and Craig Jeffery, Managing Partner at Strategic Treasurer. Welcome back to the Open Treasury Podcast, Jack and Craig.
Good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to be here. And welcome back, Jack. It's good to have you on again.
Gentlemen, let us begin our weekly review of the latest Treasury news and developments that are worth looking into a bit more fully. So the first newsworthy piece for today is about UBS, Standard Chartered and BNP Paribas joining Project Carbon, a bank-based marketplace or platform that enables carbon trading. Jack, to you first. In your opinion, is carbon trading going to accelerate? And if so, will it be by mandate or by willing adoption?
There's nothing willing about the banks. They are ploughing money into the oil companies and the coal companies. My issue is I don't think they believe in it. There is split loyalties here. It's very sad, but I think it's right. I don't think it's going to happen.
To you, Greg, what is your take on this story?
The thing I thought was interesting here is 3 more pretty large banks are joining Project Carbon. I guess this is all on the volunteer basis for doing carbon offsets. So the issue here is the article identifies this program is supposed to be fully operational by the end of 2022, and it allows people to buy and sell carbon offsets. So there's requirements in different jurisdictions and different countries to have carbon offsets. Whether it seems like it's more regulated or mandated. So it seems like they're addressing that. Whether it's a loyalty issue or not, there's certainly industries that have to do some of this. So this just shows 3 other banks joining, UBS, Standard Chartered, and BNP Paribas joined National Australia Bank, NatWest, CIBC, Itaú, Unibanco. So that's quite a bit of market cap banks entering that mixture. But I think a lot remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, the Australian banks have been ploughing money into funding the new coal mines. I think it's a bit spurious.
The second story that merits discussion is about the Bank of England and Financial Conduct Authority's AI Public-Private Final Report. This details, or the findings enumerate, the benefit, challenges, and governance of artificial intelligence in financial services. According to the report, the use of AI by fintechs can reap benefits, but can also increase risk and create new challenges. Is this a concern or rational behavior? And what is the story here?
Not being located in England, I guess we can all have opinions on what goes on. But I think the article brought up some of the points that they had a report, and they identified, as you said, that the use of AI by fintech entities can reap benefits, but also increase risk and create new challenges. I think that's true of every new technology and every new tool. And I think there's more detail behind that's worth a read, and it's worth paying attention. And I think this idea and some of the comments there about how these different fintechs are designing their data strategies. I mean, data becomes far more powerful than transactions. And as we look at the power and scale, this is a rapidly evolving technology. Part of me thinks this is reasonable that there is some thinking being done on that, but I think it also merits paying attention to it. So, some of the recommendations in the report are companies, should have a central framework for AI governance standards. And that's certainly a innocuous recommendation that you have some framework for how you make decisions. And I think we've all read reports on AI doing great things, and sometimes there being certain problems with the use of AI, including what seems to be prejudice from some AI and the sets there. And then there's a number of fairly reasonable things that there be direct accountability, and that's what we do for every major area. And since this is a great and rapidly expanding area, I think someone saying pay attention to it makes sense, whether it has to come from the FCA or overall governance makes sense. And I think one of the key parts that I really like on this is this idea of transparency and communication within AI governance. I think that idea is when we have new tools, new powerful tools that will develop very rapidly, having visibility into those things is helpful. That transparency is essential. And so this is an area I think we want to pay attention to, listen and watch, and see how these different regulatory frameworks develop.
I agree with all of that. My concern is that boards of large companies don't have the understanding of how to manage the AI framework and what is good and what is bad. I feel there's some dubious decisions going to be made automatically, and we need to be very, very careful. But I don't see how corporates can protect themselves from this other than driving at their own board asking what is the framework and what is the decision rationale behind each of the AI models. Because once they're installed, they then become a world of their own. They just keep chugging away. And those decisions are automated, and they don't quite often don't get reviewed regularly. I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of pattern detection, autonomous decision-making capabilities doesn't seem like it's wise to let them run on their own with no control, no review, and that is a potential danger. So this caution sounds like.
And this applies to all corporates. It doesn't just apply to these big banks and big organisations that the Bank of England deal with. It also applies to quite small companies who Bank of England do regular reviews with small companies. But these small companies need to be very careful that they're not adopting AI models that actually, in the long run, are going to cause them problems. I think there's going to be a lot of consultancy here to review and monitor the progress.
Moving forward, the third piece of news that caught my attention pertains to the US Federal Reserve Board emphasizing the importance of understanding the significant impact a US central bank digital currency or CBDC may have to maintain financial stability and a secure and efficient payment system. What do you think is the reason for including this article in our weekly run-through, and how do you think the Chinese digital legal tender, in its wanting to win the CBDC battle, fared in the Winter Olympics?
It's interesting the speed at which China has got into CBDCs far faster than any other central bank or any other major player. The issue is, and it was shown in the claiming that they had made great progress in the Winter Olympics. The problem, though, was that visitors to China couldn't use or didn't trust the system, which is always going to be a problem as we get new things. And the second problem is that the framework for managing this type of central bank digital coins isn't really agreed. China's got one version, but each country around the world has got different versions. There isn't going to be equal trust in the systems.
I agree with you, Jack. I think this has been an interesting scenario with the Winter Olympics. I really don't have too much to add other than I listened to a podcast on the Payments Podcast. This is by Bottom Line. A lot of really good information there about what's happening on the CBDCs, what are the issues and some of the thoughts around there. That's worth a listen to as well.
The next topic for discussion revolves around the France-based software company Sidetrade's Cash Culture Pulse 2022 survey that links spreadsheets with late payments. Is this just a use specialized software rather than a spreadsheet article? Because specialization is a superior type of article.
That's the common dog bites man story, is that this is what we expect. Specialized software should do better than people building their own things in spreadsheets and tracking it. So that's not too much of a story. What I found interesting here in this linkage is they did the study, the idea that 42%, a little over 4 out of 10 finance teams had a high ratio of late payments. And, as you look at what goes on, it was about halved by those that use credit and cash and credit management software. So easier follow-up, automated scheduling, distribution of invoices, tracking the items. That's an efficiency play. It's not so much that, spreadsheets are bad and specialized software is good by itself. It's that specialized tools save a lot of time. And I think it's also an outcome of this is a huge portion of finance team rely on spreadsheets. And 72% of those said they were dissatisfied with the process. And that, of course, makes sense, right? It's very manual. It's fractured. It's broken. But 4 out of 5 or 80% of teams using a dedicated solution were satisfied. And we've seen that across the board on receivables. So, just making your life far more efficient, using tools that you can follow this process more rapidly, I think makes tremendous sense. It's not like it's revolutionary, but I like some of the statistics there because that also gives support for companies to say, we might need to move ahead off of spreadsheets, off of manual processes into tools, whether it's here or other areas. But this is useful industry information, not a watershed event.
Jack, I'd love your perspective on this topic as well.
This is a typical reaction to people not grasping the automation brush fully. Doing spreadsheets is not enough, but you need to move to a more complete solution. And that's the problem. It's the moving from the spreadsheet to the more complete solution. There are lots of small fintechs, big and large, offering services. It's breaking through the thought processes in companies, in small teams. My son-in-law is a finance director of quite a large SME, but moving to new software is a major upheaval, and I'm still not sure how to get things moving fast. Nobody seems to have got the solution to this.
Finally, what are your respective choices for the biggest or most important stories of the past week and why?
It's actually something that we haven't covered, but we need to cover in the future. It's the realization in Treasury increasingly that payment cards are expensive vehicles and really need to be avoided if you can do this. More to come on this, but Amazon have picked up on this and have got a global deal with Visa. We need to look at things like that.
Yeah, I'll follow Jack's pattern of not addressing one of the articles that we wrote because I had written down what's the biggest most important story this past week. I think it's outside of direct finance. I think it's Russia and the Ukraine. What's going on there? Because that's going to have a ripple effect on energy pricing, different sanctions. It's going to accelerate cost. I think that's probably my number one. So I violated the process too.
Well, I never stick to the rules.
I think it's fair. It's like those other things they're bigger than this week. There was a lot of good items, but these other two things I think are more significant on a global basis.
Absolutely, because I think with geopolitical developments, interest rates, currency, commodity pricing, risks, I'd say that topic, Ukraine, Russia, is certainly possibly the biggest story of the week. Thank you so much, gentlemen. That was an engaging and informative conversation. A big thank you to you, Jack and Craig, and to our CTM audience for joining us on this edition of Open Treasury. Please subscribe and look in the show notes for the article links. Thank you.
This podcast is provided for informational purposes only, and statements made by Strategic Treasurer LLC on this podcast are not intended as legal, business, consulting, or tax advice. For more information, visit and bookmark strategictreasurer.com.